But a peaceful resolution of this issue is still possible, and far better. And if Iran changes course and meets its obligations, it can rejoin the community of nations. The renewal of American leadership can be felt across the globe. Our oldest alliances in Europe and Asia are stronger than ever. Our ties to the Americas are deeper. Our ironclad commitment, and I mean ironclad, to Israel's security has meant the closest military cooperation between our two countries in history. We've made it clear that America is a Pacific power, and a new beginning in Burma has lit a new hope. From the coalitions we've built to secure nuclear materials, to the missions we've led against hunger and disease, from the blows we've dealt our enemies, to the enduring power of our moral example, America is back. Anyone who tells you otherwise, anyone who tells you that America is in decline or that our influence has waned, doesn't know what they're talking about. That's not the message we get from leaders around the world who are eager to work with us. That's not how people feel from Tokyo to Berlin, from Cape Town to Rio, where opinions of America are higher than they've been in years. Yes, the world is changing. No, we can't control every event. But America remains the one indispensable nation in world affairs, and as long as I'm president, I intend to keep it that way. That's why, working with our military leaders, I've proposed a new defense strategy that ensures we maintain the finest military in the world while saving nearly $500 billion in our budget. To stay one step ahead of our adversaries, I've already sent this Congress legislation that will secure our country from the growing dangers of cyber threats. Above all, our freedom endures because of the men and women in uniform who defend it. As they come home, we must serve them as well as they've served us. That includes giving them the care and the benefits they have earned, which is why we've increased annual VA spending every year I've been president. And it means enlisting our veterans in the work of rebuilding our nation. With the bipartisan support of this Congress, we're providing new tax credits to companies that hire vets. Michelle and Jill Biden have worked with American businesses to secure a pledge of 135,000 jobs for veterans and their families. And tonight I'm proposing a Veterans Jobs Corps that will help our communities hire veterans as cops and firefighters so that America is as strong as those who defend her. Which brings me back to where I began. Those of us who've been sent here to serve can learn a thing or two from the service of our troops. When you put on that uniform, it doesn't matter if you're black or white, Asian, Latino, Native American, conservative, liberal, rich, poor, gay, straight. When you're marching into battle, you look out for the person next to you, or the mission fails. Where you're in the thick of the fight, you rise or fall as one unit, serving one nation, leaving no one behind. Now, one of my proudest possessions is the flag that the SEAL team took with them on the mission to get bin Laden. On it are each of their names. Some may be Democrats. Some may be Republicans. But that doesn't matter. Just like it didn't matter that day in the Situation Room, when I sat next to Bob Gates, a man who was George Bush's defense secretary, and Hillary Clinton, a woman who ran against me for president. All that mattered that day was the mission. No one thought about politics. No one thought about themselves. One of the young men involved in the raid later told me that he didn't deserve credit for the mission. It only succeeded, he said, because every single member of that unit did their job. The pilot who landed the helicopter that spun out of control, the translator who kept others from entering the compound, the troops who separated the women and children from the fight, the SEALs who charged up the stairs. More than that, the mission only succeeded because every member of that unit trusted each other. Because you can't charge up those stairs into darkness and danger unless you know that there's somebody behind you watching your back. So it is with America. Each time I look at that flag, I'm reminded that our destiny is stitched together like those 50 stars and those 13 stripes. No one built this country on their own. This nation is great because we built it together. This nation is great because we worked as a team. This nation is great because we get each other's backs. And if we hold fast to that truth in this moment of trial, there is no challenge too great, no mission too hard. As long as we are joined in common purpose, as long as we maintain our common resolve, our journey moves forward, and our future is hopeful, and the state of our union will always be strong. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
President Obama concluding the State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress tonight. The president saying that the State of the Union is getting stronger, echoing there the words of Ronald Reagan in 1986, who said the State of the Union was stronger than a year ago and growing stronger each day. President Obama in an assertive speech with a lot of policy specifics, also taking on a lot of the issues on which he has been most criticized, both by people within his own party and by those across the aisle. The president addressing everything from the Solyndra issue, the Energy Department's funding of a solar panel manufacturer, to his pledges as a candidate and in the early days of his presidency to change the tone, in tonight's words, to change the temperature in Washington. Joining us once again from Washington is my colleague Chris Matthews at Hardball. Chris, what's your reaction to the speech?
Well, everything you said, and just to add, I thought it had a real grab for the high ground in terms of optimism. He wants the Republicans to be what he calls declinists. He wants to be the optimist. That's a very powerful thing in American politics. Secondly, it was a Clinton-esque speech, very detailed, long enough to make the point that he was strong on all the policy questions, thereby knocking down Mitt Romney's constant harangue that he's never run a company, never run a state. This guy's run a country. and he's trumped them on that, and he's made it clear he's running the country. Cooperative, talking about I will do the stuff that's tough for me as a Democrat in Medicare and Medicaid, even Social Security. You do your stuff in taxes or there's no deal. Taking the side of the 99%, the populist side against the 1% on taxes. Challenging Congress to clean up its own act. Maybe an unfair shot, but a good, strong one about insider trading and getting rid of the filibuster. Very, very strong, and especially talking about giving jobs to the soldiers, men and women who come home from fighting our wars. I thought it covered a lot of territory, and what we learned before in terms of the success of these speeches, people like detail. That's why they like Clinton's speeches, and they don't mind length if it has information. So I thought it was a strong, patriotic, optimistic speech, but it also had punch to it. It said to the Republicans, I know where you live. I'm going after you on the filibuster, on insider trading. Look out, I can fight.
The president's speech tonight, an hour and 5 minutes long, throughout with an energetic and even loud at times, not a particularly angry speech, but an assertive one. Going into this speech, a lot of us here on this panel in New York and those we've been talking about it with, had said that we expected taxes to be the central issue of this speech. Taxes certainly part of the speech, but not exactly the spine on which the whole speech hung, Lawrence. What do you think about the balance of specifics, poetry, and prose?
Well, taxes was done mostly in poetry. It was all nice-sounding things with absolutely no tax specifics. The closest he came to anything specific, it was a lot of this tax fairy dust that you will sprinkle on corporate America, and suddenly that will create a hiring pattern, or that'll induce manufacturers to behave differently. It's never worked in the past, and most of those pieces of legislation die in process anyway. The one specific thing was that people making over $1 million should not pay less than 30% in effective income tax rates. And even that, when you look at the handout they gave us with some additional specificity to it, they say they want to exempt charitable contributions from being hit by that law. So as soon as you start looking at the first layer of detail on even that one, it is not at all clear how they would do that. And so what's happened for Democrats is they have to use the tax code instead of spending to get to the social policies they want to get to because of the complexities of budgeting. And so that's why they have this new faith that the tax code can create economic behavior in industry that we've never seen it create.
One thing on the tax issue, in some ways I thought the more interesting element was on the corporate tax side. Yeah. He argued for something new called a global minimum tax. Yes. And basically what that is currently a company can put their money in Ireland, and Ireland is a very, very low corporate tax rate in order to attract companies putting their money there. You don't have to pay taxes on that money until you bring it back, which corporations often never do or don't do until Congress passes a special overseas profits tax break. Under this, you would have to pay the difference between the Irish tax rate and this global minimum tax every year. So you wouldn't be able to just sock your money away and never pay any American taxes on it. That's a big change to the way we treat overseas corporate income, and will be, if Congress ever in fact does take it up, which obviously is a big if, a huge, huge fight.
Ezra, let me just ask you on this subject, in terms of the specifics, tax or otherwise, what do you think was the most ambitious, specific policy that the president laid out? Not just a goal for the country, but a specific policy change.
The Buffett tax, it sounds like a 30% alternative minimum tax, and once you're a millionaire, if what you would be paying is less than 30%, this would automatically kick in. The other piece that was specific, and I haven't seen the charitable deduction element, if you eliminate all deductions and subsidies, the home mortgage interest deduction, the health care tax exclusion, for people making over $1 million, you raise an enormous amount of money. You're talking about trillions, or $1 trillion or more over 10 years. If they were actually able to do it, it would essentially create a sort of a flat tax at the top of the code for high earners. If they could manage that, it would be quite a feat.
There is for people who aren't wonks, there is a fairness case to be made for it. That is, listen, we've tried to give people tax breaks on, for example, the interest you pay on your mortgage or having a kid, because we as a country think those are good social policies, but zillionaires don't need those breaks. Zillionaires don't need those incentives. They can pay for it on their own. Reverend Sharpton, in terms of the overall structure of the speech, the president